Hi there, this is David, and I'm coming to you today to talk about something pretty important: plagiarism. As a teacher, I taught my 5th graders not to plagiarize. I did an entire unit on how to cite sources, create a bibliography, how to paraphrase, and just how to actually look for sources and write a proper paper using their own ideas. Imagine that! If a 5th grader can do it, you would think that a reputable author could do it as well. But no, I have been plagiarized by a gaming publication. I'm not going to say which publication or who the author was because they have taken care of it. But I do want to make this video to let y'all know that this sort of thing happens, and it's going to continue happening unless we stand up to it. Yesterday, I was made aware of a particular article, and they sent it to me just kind of in good fun to be like, hey, I know that you did a series on this. Here's this article that kind of does the same sort of thing. And I'm looking over it, and immediately, I recognized my work. Now, the person who sent it to me probably didn't, but whenever you actually go and you make this work and you pour your heart and soul into it and you write about what you know, you can immediately recognize it. Let's take a little gander, shall we? I go here to this one. Okay, so this folder right here, this is every single top 10 list, review, ranking, whatever that I've ever done. It's all right here. And as you can see, it's a lot. It's like writing a term paper whenever you create a video. There is a lot going on here. I know many people think like, oh, hey, doing YouTube and making videos and things like that, it's so much fun. It's all just fun and games. Let me tell you, it's a lot of work. Let's look at this right here. This video, or this script right here that I have. This is a normal script. There it is. We're going on through. There's a lot here. This one is 3 pages long in particular, and it's also missing the little end part, so it would normally be 4 pages long. Here's another one. These are pretty long scripts, as you can see. There's a lot going on here. I pour a lot of my time, a lot of my energy into doing this, into writing about what I know. So if I can do it, little Mr. YouTuber over here, you would think that a professional author could do it too. So, here is the article in question. Let's just go through this point by point. I am going to let you see what they wrote as we watch what I said. Number 10, Charla of Xenoblade. I can hear the chorus in the comments right now. The main healer? How could you possibly put the best healer on this list? Well, let me tell you. Basically, it's because that's all she can do. It's not like she's the only one that can heal the party, too. So she's pretty heavily outclassed by everybody else around her, especially once you get Riki, whose healing over time techniques are just so strong, and he can stack his damage over time spells on the enemies, too. All Charlotte can do is heal and shoot with her gun, and for most randoms, Shulk's healing abilities are perfectly serviceable, so you may have to pull her in for a few super bosses towards the end of the game, but that's all that she's really good for. For 99% of it, she's just going to be sitting there on the sidelines, watching, while everybody else slaughters the mobs much more efficiently. I love how, it seems like they started maybe writing some of their own ideas, but as we came on, they really just start taking and taking and taking more and more and more. Let's hear Kaimari. Number 9, Kaimari of Final Fantasy X. Blue mages are normally some of the best characters that you can get in the game. First introduced in Final Fantasy V as the most versatile class there was, Square toned them down a bit with Strago, but then beefed them up again in 7 and 9 with the enemy skill material and Kina.
Say what you will about Kina as a character, but in battle, she was the bomb. Kaimari, on the other hand, not so much. Unfortunately, you can only use his blue magic as an overdrive, which makes him situational at best, but worse than that, he's the only character who doesn't have a dedicated sphere grid, so no matter what you do, he'll always lag behind the others. I get what they were trying to do here. Square was allowing the player a bit of customization over how to raise him up. And yeah, you could go into Riku's path and get steal and use early in the game, so I guess he's okay for that. But really, at the end of the day, he's just redundant. No.
So here they even they literally took exactly what I said about all the other Final Fantasies and they put them right in there, and it goes point by point by point of what I said and then what they said. It's in the exact same order. Let's move on to Bowser, and I got so much flack in the comments section for saying that Bowser sucked. But apparently this guy was like, oh, hey, whatever, everybody's talking about Bowser, let's throw him in there too.
Number 6, Bowser of Super Mario RPG. Tank characters can either be really good or really bad, and in Bowser's case, he's bottom of the barrel bad. When you can really only have 3 characters in your party, you need to be choosy, and Mario, who's a well-rounded attacker and tank, is required. So Bowser just becomes redundant, and he really offers nothing unique. So let's look at the others. Princess Toadstool is a shoo-in with her group healing, great overall equipment selection, and powerful attacks. Geno is a solid choice with great stats and good abilities, able to hit max damage, and Mallow is a versatile mage, able to clear out randoms with his Thunderbolt and backup heal as well. Bowser is unfortunately just so one-note. He only has 4 special skills, and most of them are pretty worthless and hard to pull off. And yes, while he does hit like a truck, unfortunately he's slow as a turtle, and about as versatile as one too.
And well, there we go. Now, here we're moving on to They Just Said Meg. I wanted to talk about all of the losers in Fire Emblem because there's just so many. So maybe here they might have done a little tiny bit of research about Meg. Why didn't they just write what they knew? But in my All the Losers, guess who I specifically mentioned? Meg.
The many losers of Fire Emblem. This series is quite the juggernaut, going on for about 3 decades now. It's bound to have its fair share of losers, so I'll try to hit the high or low points in this case. In the Binding Blade, Wendy, the useless armor knight, and Sophia, the level 1 mage, are ridiculously horrid, with both of them joining extremely late in the game with abysmal stats and unpromoted to boot. And then speaking of promotions, there's Soth in Path of Radiance, whose stats can never really get all that high, and he can't promote at all for some godforsaken reason. Then there's Dew, another useless thief, who can't go anywhere, and can only use the worst swords in Genealogy of the Holy War. Radiant Dawn has some craptastic characters too, with Fiona, who the game seems to actively discourage you from even touching, and Meg. Armors in general suck, but they made her even worse. I mean, what's the point? They're supposed to be on the front lines protecting you, but they can barely move, so they're always in the back doing nothing. And speaking of bad classes, what's with the archers? Walt, Gordon, and Will can all just go die in a fire as far as I'm concerned.
Now moving on to Little Doggy, Worst Boy, Boney. They just, it's literally just right down the list, people. It's kind of ridiculous.
Number 8, Boney of Mother 3. My first thought when it came to Mother 3 was Salsa, the much maligned monkey that you can't help but love, but I just couldn't do it to him. You only play as him for 1 chapter, and he does have some pretty nifty skills, and the poor little guy is tortured the entire time. Boney, on the other hand, is an entirely different story. He's an item mule, nothing more. The Mother series has a long tradition of characters who specialize in using items, but Lloyd and Jeff get unique items that only they can use, which deal massive damage or have a multitude of different effects. Not so much with Boney here. He's fast, I'll give him that, so it's good to use him as a healer in a pinch, but he really can't do much else. His equipment options are severely lacking, he can't use any PSI at all, and, to make matters worse, sometimes when you use a food item on another character, Boney will actually eat it instead. I mean, yeah, he's just a dog, I get it, but there's been some kick-ass dogs in JRPG before, and poor Boney is not one of them. Number 7.
So let's just go right down the list. Generic item jockey. I mentioned that first. Then I talked about how Boney will sometimes eat a food item. And then I was like, granted, I know he's just a dog. It's all right there in order.
Adri of Star Ocean 3. Black mages in Star Ocean games are already pretty terrible across the board, but Adri just takes the cake. As a required, last-minute addition to the director's cut version of the game, he's pretty much just an incomplete character. He doesn't even have an endgame armor, for God's sake. Everything about him is just an afterthought. His skills are extremely unwieldy, and with everything that he can do, there's just another party member that can quite simply do it better. Specializing in melee attacks and black magic, there's better party members for that, and because you can only use 3 members in battle, you can really only afford to use the best of the best. Even when I'm just being completely shallow and evaluating him on his hot muscle daddy body. Cliff does that better too.
Rushed last-minute addition to the director's cut of Star Ocean the End of Time with no endgame armor. A complete afterthought in your party. Now this was the main giveaway right here. You're gonna tell me that this random Johnny-come-lately is one of 2 people in the entire universe that has actually played the Magical Land of Oz? Like me and him? Sure, Jan, whatever.
Ceramic of the Magical Land of Oz. I've spoken about my love for Oz many times before, but boy do I hate Ceramic. Here, you have a typical 4-person party where 3 of the members are mandatory. However, who you're using in the 4th slot is completely up to you. There are a lot of characters that you can choose from over the course of the game to fill up that 4th slot. However, some are most definitely better than others, and Ceramic is easily the worst of the bunch. Having the stats of a mage, she should have the spells to back it up too, but her spells are the most useless ones available because every single one is just a status healing spell. She gets extremely specific magic that only work to cure poison, stone, sleep, stuff like that. Literally nothing else. I mean, her entire spell list is replaced by items that you can buy for 10 gold at the shop. It's just outrageous that they made such a terrible character. Number 10.
Do I really need to even comment? I mean, come on. Oh, and Princeton? Princeton? That's not even the guy's name! Princeton? The Prince of Cannock? Who comes up with this crap? Princeton.
The Prince of Cannock of Dragon Warrior 2. Many of you have asked where he was, certain that he would be in a previous list, but I've hesitated to add him and drag him on here since, number 1, he's mandatory, and number 2, you're locked into a 3-person party. He does have his uses. He is a great backup healer, he is outside and return, and he has access to Firebane and Increase as well. However, all that being said, he is still completely outclassed by the other 2. The real problem with the Prince of Cannock is that his equipment selection sucks. His best weapon in the entire game is the Iron Spear, which you get in the town that you go to right after you first recruit him at the beginning of the game. So he's pretty much just better off defending or casting a spell by the time that you get the ship. Thankfully, Enix realized this and gave him some extra weapons to equip in the subsequent remakes, so just for clarity, he's really only crappy in the NES version, not the others. And finally...
And of course, the doorbell rings whenever I'm recording. That's just lovely. But we're moving on to Harley!
Number 1, Harley of Final Fantasy IV, The After Years. My personal theory on Harley is that Square was actively trying to make a character that was more terrible than Edward was in the original game. His secretary Harley succeeds in that regard. She's probably one of the worst party members in any Final Fantasy game ever. Her stats and equipment draws are that of a mage, but she has no magic whatsoever. Interestingly, though, hackers have found that she was supposed to have a skill called Knowledge, which would have increased the attack power of items, as well as the ability to use blue magic, which would have made her infinitely more useful. But as it stands now, she has 2 abilities, Gill Toss, which damages enemies but costs a ton of money, and the useless Piercing Sight, which gives an enemy an elemental weakness but doesn't work against bosses. I mean, give me a break. Number 4. Half the cast.
And then, the kicker, if ceramic wasn't bad enough, they say almost everyone in Chrono Cross. I say half the cast of Chrono Cross, and you know what? Who got a bunch of shit for doing this? Me! But you know who doesn't give a shit? Me. Because I still stand by this. Half the cast of Chrono Cross sucks. But yeah, let's take a gander, shall we?
Of Chrono Cross. Where do I even begin? Oh, well, that's easy. Korcha. Not only is this whiny, Speedo-wearing weirdo damned annoying, but his stats are terrible across the board. He's the worst blue innate, although Pierre is down there with him if you don't get the hero equipment. He's just a joke. Mojo has nothing at all going for him except evasion, and even there, I kinda think that stat's bugged. And Skelly's weak, completely not worth the trouble of getting, and just epitomizes the whole gotta catch 'em all-ness of this game. Good lord, Zappa, he's just bad. And why would you even consider using another red innate when you have Kid to play around with? And speaking of Kid, she makes Mel entirely redundant when she has nothing going for her except the ability to steal. I could go on. Pauschal is stupidly annoying, and every time you see Lucia, you just wish that it was Luca from Chrono Trigger. I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty that I've missed, but that's a start.
So, there we go. I've been pretty much completely 100% plagiarized. And thankfully, I have reached out to this website. They have taken the offending article down, and they have dealt with the author. But you have to wonder, is that just because I contacted them? Would they have just left it up there if nobody said anything? If it just happened that this person didn't send me this article and I just never knew about it, it would have just remained up there? You just have to wonder. Like, you have to think about these gaming websites. They give their authors a quota, and they have to fulfill that quota, or they get paid by the amount of articles that they do. So they're like, oh, let's just do a top 10 worst JRPG list. Since this random YouTuber, he made the list for me, I'll just watch a couple of his videos, kind of paraphrase what he's doing. Boom, done the end. There's an article, give him my $100 or whatever it is that you get paid for writing these articles. It's crazy. And I'm sure it's not just me that it happens to. And I'm sure that this isn't going to be the last time that something like this happens either. But I just want to make everyone aware. That's the purpose of this video, is to make everybody aware that this does happen, that this does go on, that this is definitely a problem. This, to me, was completely mentally draining yesterday whenever I found out about this. After streaming, I went downstairs and I fell asleep on the couch. And it was 7 o'clock in the afternoon, and I never fall asleep on the couch at 7 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was just so mentally drained, so mentally exhausted, just kind of thinking about this and dealing about this and being so upset about it, that it just completely 100% mentally drained me. So again, I don't want to call anybody out or anything. I don't want to witch hunt. That's not the purpose of this video. We're not getting out our torches and pitchforks. I just want to make people aware that this does occur, that this does happen, and that it's completely unacceptable. If my 5th graders can figure out how not to plagiarize, a professional, paid author journalist can figure it out too. Have a good day.